Welcome to 13. 13 minutes of gig news in just under 13 minutes. Let's go. I was gonna talk about this Doordash transparency that we're undergoing in Colorado. What I will tell you is that I don't have an exact name for it yet, but over the next several days, I have Doordash shifts scheduled that I have never. You guys know that I don't count a lot on Doordash. I don't do a lot. I'm a bottom feeder with my AR is lower or is down there with many. But when I can schedule a 2 or 3 hour block on a Friday if I remember to do it 5 days out. That's what it's been like here lately. There are lots of reasons for this. As of late, I've been able to schedule a lot. I'm going to do this week's podcast that will drop on Tuesday. Will be specifically about the Doordash challenge I'm doing that I've put upon myself. And I'm literally keeping results every day that I'm out working of every offer that comes through, the ones I accept, the ones I don't, the downtime, the real time, and what is going on with these offers. You guys need to know it because we are the first transparent state. And we'll get into that because there's some real trickery going on with manipulation of money, and it's now very clear to me. But we've been talking about this a lot. It's longer than a 13-minute piece, so that's why it's going to be the entire podcast this week, or at least, it's going to be the first story, which sometimes ends up being the only story. So make sure you catch it on Tuesday. But in the meantime, for 13 this week, I want to go back to something else we were talking about for a while. And I was bringing it to your guys' attention because we've talked about, like, if you have my zone is very big. Okay, we're talking about Doordash right now specifically. My zone is very big. There's many zones around Denver, but mine is very big. And where it extends to is like really goes out there from where I am. Let's say that in my zone, on the farthest end, there's a McDonald's, and then here there's a McDonald's, and all throughout there's McDonald's. Many of us have often wondered, why am I picking up a McDonald's here to take it all the way here to the farthest end of the zone when there's a McDonald's a half a mile from that drop-off? As a theory, and something I was putting together with some other people last year, I said that, I think there's PARs on these, especially with the McDonald's accounts and stuff. There is. We finally have confirmation of this thanks to our friend at Doordash, who will continue to remain nameless. We appreciate everything they do and everything they have done in the past through other people to get to me and others. But that is what they do. They have to hit a certain number of orders, dollars. That part I don't know. But they have par levels they have to get to with every McDonald's to be able to get the most money out of their partnerships with DoorDash or UberEats. So if you're going, why am I picking up McDonald's here to drive it 25 minutes away when 1 minute away from that address is a McDonald's that's open that I know they do DoorDash too? Makes no sense, right? I mean, at all. From the business standpoint, customer wants warm food. We already have drivers that cancel, things that go wrong, food gets cold, dirty stacking, and all these things that some of the multi-appers do these days. So the chance of the food being cold, even if you have a hot bag of just not being that it was, you just spent a lot of money on this food, it's gonna taste older. So like I've always said, like, why isn't it? It's because they have par levels to keep the rates that they have with these businesses. And this is where it's going to come into play. So these businesses obviously the platform wants to charge the restaurants, for using the platform because they are providing delivery and they're getting more orders out than the restaurant would on their own, correct? Restaurants can't afford to have their own delivery places. I've seen some try and pair up and do, like 3 restaurants try and use one driver or whatnot in past years. That's very difficult as well. Plus, you don't have a platform and an app where all the marketing's been done and all the people are targeted to you already. So during the pandemic, many of these companies, that was their first in with them. Many of them had been doing work with them before the pandemic, but basically every restaurant that wanted to even try and be open during the pandemic had no choice but to go to the gig apps. Now it's become such a major portion of their of their sales being done are done through gig apps. However, that is changing. And we have stats and everything for, I mean, pretty much across the country. I'm sure there's going to be some rural markets or other things, but big cities, that's changing. Even though we thought years ago people were going back out to eat and whatnot, they weren't. They are now. And a lot of people are going out to the fast food type places that they order, and they're getting it themselves because they've realized the fee. And that, again, on this week's podcast, I will get into the DoorDash Transparency Challenge in detail, okay? But basically, the customer outside of Colorado, I'm going to keep it to that because we have a different thing that I'll explain this week. But outside of Colorado, and used to be Colorado, the customer sees, like they put in what they want from a McDonald's. Let's keep it easy. Okay, we need this. We have 4 people. This. Everybody's ordering. Yep. And it says, here's your total. And that total isn't broke down yet. That total that you see is just, here it is. Here's where you're at. You're at $56.45. And so far, no meaning behind that, unless you're the person ordering the food and going, wait, that seems really high. It's not going to show you fees and all this and that and the other. It just shows you a screen that says, okay, here, it's almost like a subtotal. Here's where you are with the food. And they've included fees and other things like that. They have not included any driver tips. So once you say, yes, make order, then it takes you to the flow screen of percentage of tip to the Uber driver. And that's where you choose that. And then it adds that to the order, makes it even more. Now, once the order arrives, and this is in Colorado, this is everywhere. This is how it's been for years on the customer side. Once the food arrives, you can actually look at the receipt and see the full breakdown. But the full breakdown isn't the full breakdown because you have the subtotal of what is ordered. You have fees and taxes built into one, which is bullshit because, as we know, and as we're learning here in Colorado, a lot of things are becoming very, very transparent by being transparent. Go figure. But those fees and taxes, it makes it so that people are like, okay, that's the taxes and the fees. Good. No, we need to see what everything is. And then it says, delivery driver or tip or however it wants to describe it. And then that's your breakdown. Now we need more details. But remember that on the restaurant side, one of the things that we have not liked at all is that they up the prices of the items in the restaurant. So if you frequent McDonald's, let's just stick with McDonald's because I know it could be nicer restaurants, it could be other fast food, who cares? But let's stick with McDonald's. If you go to McDonald's, which is very expensive already anyway to go to these days, it's got very expensive to even go to McDonald's. So, but if you go there all the time, you get 2 meals. Pick it up on your way home. Then every once in a while, you don't feel like doing it, and you order the 2 meals through a gig app. You're going to notice, if you're doing the exact same thing, you're going to notice the difference right away. And you're going to think it's the delivery fee and the taxes and all that, but it takes a lot of people a long time to know that the value of the subtotal, the per item cost at restaurants in the gig apps is higher by a good percentage. I mean, we pointed this out with some Philadelphia or with some Seattle ones during pay up legislation that were like almost 300% of the cost of the item if you were to go in and get that one item in the restaurant. It was almost 300% just for the item off the Doordash UberEats. So what is going on here in Denver, and I think we're going to see this in other states, and we're going to talk about some of the other legislation too next week. Next week's going to be a big 13, guys. Don't miss it. But one thing that's already happening here, so again, New Year's Day just passed, right? We're just days into the new year. 2 weeks prior to New Year's. Now, on New Year's here in Colorado is when the transparency law went into effect. But 2 weeks prior to it, not Uber Eats, they weren't doing anything. But DoorDash was already starting exactly how it would look in the new year. Total, then customers tip, and you were starting to get a feel for it. They were just testing out the bugs because the fines are extremely high if they get caught doing this. And the customer needs the exact same broke down receipt as the driver. So the customer always knows what the driver is paid now here in Colorado. It's a game changer. Could be good, could be bad the way they're playing it though. But now, so we've talked about how DoorDash had the foothold in the United States for food delivery. That margin's getting closer and closer and closer. And I think it's because a lot of people don't want to use DoorDash and UberEats anymore. They don't want to open them both and see who's cheaper or whatnot. And a lot of people, I got to tell you, a lot of travelers that I know who come through Denver in and out, they only use Uber because they like Uber because they need it for rideshare too. So I've actually talked to some people who have said they used to have DoorDash. They used to compare the two prices with Uber Eats, but now they've just deleted it and gone to Uber Eats. We hear different stories from different markets. It is what it is. These companies, very likely in the new year, are going to start doing one of two things. They're going to start fighting over the cities that they have the strong foothold in. So if Uber has 70% of this city's delivery volume, and DoorDash has 20 or 25 and Grubhub has 5, let's say. And then let's say the next city over, it's opposite. Let's say it's 70% DoorDash, 25% Uber Eats, 5% Grubhub. Now, Grubhub's probably doing nothing except for their normal across the board. But wouldn't it make sense that after all this time, there's a thing called race to the bottom, but wouldn't it make sense after all this time if they started doing, you know what, let's really concentrate on this where we have 70%, and not as much on marketing and all that here when we only have 25. On top of that, they are trying, right here in Colorado, I know 2 restaurant owners who have been approached for meetings that are coming up with either one or both of these DoorDash, Uber Eats companies to see if they will sign exclusively with them, meaning only they will be able to deliver for that restaurant. Kind of the same thing. Are they going to start just fighting over city or kind of going with the cities they have and still keeping a foothold in the other ones, but kind of more just like, yeah, we're active there, but who cares? We're focused on these. And they kind of like split the country up. It's something that's going to play into next week. So I'm going to leave it there. It's like a part 2 of 3 almost, it feels like, because it's the inner piece. But that's about all I can get to without really having to dive into some major stuff. Do not forget or miss the podcast this week, the DoorDash transparency that's in Colorado. I know a lot of you guys do Dash. You're going to want to know this, and I'm doing a lot of notes for you guys. And that's 13 minutes of gig news in just under 13 minutes.